Please give a warm Georgia Tech welcome to our guest, Judith Winfrey.
Thank you. It cracks me up that I am standing here in front of you talking to students at a business school at Georgia Tech. And it cracks me up because if you had asked me when I was 20 years old what I thought business was, can I cuss? Am I allowed to cuss? I would have told you that business was about exploitation and extraction, and I wasn't interested in it. I think ideas like that were probably why my mom told me when I was 15 that I was just far too militant. I was just, why must you be so militant, Judith, she would say. So here I am, 20 some odd years later. I'm still that principled, outspoken girl. Not much has changed, except now I'm running a business. I'm running not just a business, but a startup. And I think that part of how I ended up getting to where I am with PeachDish has a lot to do with the fact that I stuck to my principles. I stuck to my principles all along. In fact, very recently, a friend of mine named Natalie Channon, who is also an entrepreneur, who has this amazing business called Alabama Channon that maybe a few of you might be interested in. It's in Alabama. They make clothing, textiles, with organic cotton. This is an example of one of her skirts. And I would definitely call this an impact business as well, because her idea, she was this fashion designer from Alabama, living in New York. She came back to Alabama where there were lots of mill workers up in Northwest Alabama, and they had all lost their jobs after NAFTA. And she put all of these mill workers back to work, doing handwork, which is what they were trained to do, and selling skirts and dresses and amazing costumes for people all over the world. It's a really incredible business. It's a success story. She's now growing organic cotton in Alabama, and you can see over the 20 years of her work the impact she's had. And I was talking to my friend Natalie the other day, and she said to me, you know, I think that clarity and truth-telling is your superpower. And that really resonated with me because it took me back to that girl who was 20 who said business was for dicks. That's what I said when I was 20. And then it took me back to being a 15-year-old whose mother said, you're so militant. Why do you have to be so militant? So I found myself in the recent past at this dinner party with Alice Waters. Now, by this time, I've been an organic farmer for a number of years. I am running a successful hospitality group here in Atlanta, where I worked with my friend Nona. Hi. And I'm acting as a COO for this business that has about 200 employees, 5 businesses all in all. We run 24/7, do about $20 million in revenue. I've been the leader of Slow Food Atlanta for many years. I've been the regional governor for Slow Food. I've been a Terra Madre delegate, which is a slow food meeting that happens every couple of years. And I get invited to this dinner with Alice Waters, my hero. She's this legendary chef. I'm sure you know her. She has this restaurant in California called Chez Panisse. She really started the farm-to-table movement in this country, and she's an international board member for Slow Food. I get this invitation in the mail. I really can't even believe what I'm seeing. It's handwritten. It's gorgeous. It says that the attire is peasant chic. I'm like, what? I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm a working person. That makes me a peasant, so I'm just going to wear my work clothes. Like, I don't know. So I'm sitting at this dinner. I walk in, and my husband and I are clearly the token farmers in this room. It's like all of Atlanta's progressive check writers are there, and me and my husband and Alice Waters, and Steven Satterfield from Miller Union is cooking, and I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. But I find myself seated next to this young man named Hadi Irvani, who is telling me, this is 2013, he wants to start a company sending food in the mail to people all over the country. Here comes that truth teller. I'm like, that is a terrible idea. No one is going to buy food in the mail. No one's going to do it. You're going to get people sick. You don't know anything about food. You're crazy. Don't do this. A year later, I find myself business partners with this young man running a meal kit company based out of Atlanta, shipping food nationally to customers who care about transparency and integrity and food quality. So I'm going to do a real quick overview of meal kits. I know you probably all know what they are, but it's in my slides, so we'll go really fast. Meal kits are based on this idea that people want to cook. There are a lot of reasons that they can't cook or they don't cook. A lot of it has to do with the way our lives are right now, has to do with the fact that we're sitting in traffic, we don't have the skill set, we need convenience and ease, and we want to have high quality food. We want to have high quality food experiences at home, but we need help, and so meal kits ostensibly make it easier. They put together recipes and ingredients, and they ship it to your house. You pull it out, you cook it, you have a fantastic meal. That's a meal kit. Has everybody tried a meal kit? Has anybody tried a meal kit? So I have gift cards here. It was Halloween, so I wanted to bring a treat, and I wanted to bring something better than candy. So I do have some gift cards here for you all, and a few other treats. So I'll pull them out after this talk. So that's what meal kits are. There are a ton of them. Most all of the national meal kit companies are backed by venture capital. Ours is not. That's one thing that makes us different. But I think the big thing that makes us different is the way we approach meal kits and the values that sort of underlie the work that we do. The reason I found myself running a meal kit company is because farmers are really important to me. This particular farmer is my husband, and he is really important to me. But many farmers are important to me, and farmers are important to me because I think what they do is extraordinary. I think that farmers are critical caretakers of our society on many different levels. And what I saw with PeachDish was this opportunity to help bring farmers who have incredibly hard jobs, incredibly demanding physically, emotionally, mechanically, in almost every way you can think of it. They're small business people, and they have these incredibly hard jobs. And I wanted to try to find a way to make something easier for them. So I thought, well, here's a way that we could aggregate food from a lot of small farms and bring farmers into a digital economy and help them find channels to sell their food. And this is important to me for a lot of reasons. As I've said, I think farmers are caretakers of our society. They're job providers, and they're food providers. And food is incredibly important. This man is also important to me, not in the same way as my husband, but he's been very influential in my life. His name is Carlo Petrini. He's the founder of Slow Food International. He's an Italian journalist, anarchist, thinker, and he's said a few things that have meant a whole lot to me over the years. He got involved in food activism when McDonald's was going to put a restaurant in Rome at the Spanish Steps. And he thought, this is not what Italians are. This is not our values. This is not who we are. We are Italians. We believe in pasta. We believe in slow food. And he organized this group of Italian grandmothers to come down to the Spanish Steps with bowls of handmade pasta and protest this McDonald's. That was how he got his start with slow food. The two things that Carlo has said to me that have meant so incredibly much are one, what you eat is the most important decision you will ever make. And what you eat is the most important thing you will ever buy. And the reason it's the most important thing you'll ever buy is because it's the only thing you're ever going to buy that literally becomes who you are. It becomes your eyes and your brain and your hair and your skin and your bones and your joints. Everything you are comes from what you eat. So it's incredibly important. He also said, well, I want to go on to finish that statement because it's pretty funny. He goes on and he says, human beings are amazing to me. They'll spend hundreds of dollars on sneakers to make them run faster or on Armani underwear so that they can feel sexy, but they'll cheap out on their food. And food is the thing that makes you run fast and makes you feel sexy because it makes you feel vibrant and alive. So it's important, right? So Carlo really helped me see that. And the other thing he said that meant a lot to me was that farmers will be the protagonists of the third industrial revolution. Farmers will be the protagonists of the third industrial revolution, and he thinks that industrial revolution will be clean energy. So Carlo was a big influence on me when I thought about farmers and why they're important and what I wanted to do with meal kits and how I wanted to bring farmers into the digital economy, because I wanted farmers to provide our customers with outstanding food. I wanted our customers to have the highest quality, most nutritionally dense, most potentially impacting food, health impacting food that they could have. And I say this a lot to my team, and I think it's probably a little bit silly, but I think it's also a little bit true that we're doing our part for world peace by getting good food to people, because we're making people's lives better, whether they realize it or not, whether they care about farmers, whether they care about organic agriculture. This is sort of a primary motivator to me. Another reason that I think farmers are really important is because they are stewards of the earth. They are the ones who are in dialogue with the planet, and they are the ones that are helping heal the planet. I mean, we've done a lot of really horrible things to the earth, and farmers are helping alleviate that. I don't know how many of you know that agriculture, and specifically the fertilizer runoff from industrial agriculture, is the major pollutant of our oceans, more than the plastic bottles that you see on Facebook. They are causing these huge algae blooms and causing huge kills, especially in the Gulf of Mexico where the Mississippi is. So I think on a very meaningful way, farmers become these small micro ecosystems where there's life and there's thriving, and it's important to nurture that as much as possible. My vision is that we have thousands of small farms around us right here where we can access food that we can eat, and also the life around us will be nurtured. At our farm in Decatur, inside the perimeter, about 3 blocks from a major golf course, it's the only place in the city inside the perimeter where the state frog can consistently be documented, because it's dangerous out there for frogs. So inside the city, the only place that researchers from UGA can consistently come and find these very sensitive amphibians is at our farm. And they come every year and they count them, and it helps them understand how well the amphibian population is doing ITP. That's just a small example of what farms do. They do it below the soil, they do it above the soil, and farmers are the people that are doing that caretaking. Farmers also are stewards of place. They're helping us heal the earth, and they're helping keep us tethered to our own humanity, frankly. They are the ones who remind us that no matter how much we all enjoy all of the technology that we have around us, the incredible truth is we are biological creatures living in a biological system, and farmers and farmer writers like my friend Janice Ray are the people who I think help remind us of that, and I think they're going to be more and more important as time goes on. So that's a little bit about what the underlying motivation is in what we do and why we think we're different. It has to do a lot with the transparency, the farmers that we support, the systems that we've put in place to support those farmers. I brought this very simple example, but I think it tells a really great story about what we do. So every year, we put together a forecast of what we think we're going to buy, produce and protein-wise, from our farm vendors. And we send it out to them at the beginning of the year when they're doing their crop planning for the year and they're starting to make their seed orders. And we let them know, hey, over the course of the year, we think we're going to buy 30,000 pounds of kale. So you tell us how much you think you're going to be able to grow for us. So we send this annual forecast out, and that's what you're seeing. That's what this is. And I'll leave it up here. And then we also send out a weekly forecast. It projects 6 weeks out what we're going to buy, how much we think we're going to need, and we have this informal bid process where farmers come back to us and they say, I can't do all of that, but I can do some of it, or I can do all of it and I want to do all of it because I need to make that sale. And it's been an incredible tool for the farmers. It also, frankly, was a way for us to earn credibility in the beginning. Even though I have a lot of relationships with farmers and I'm friends with a lot of farmers, it was really hard to earn their trust and to get them to believe that we were going to be a consistent market for them. So we came up with this idea of sending out this email every week that was like, here's what we're trying to buy this week, to get them to see that there was going to be a consistent market from us. So I guess overall I would just say that values, the values of our community and the values of feeding our customers good food, and the values of taking care of the earth are sort of like this fundamental piece of what we do that underlies the meal kits that we send out. This is our corporate compass that we put together about 2 years ago. I totally ripped off this idea from a Harvard Business Review article that I read. I got really excited about it, and I was like, oh, this is a great idea. It's like everything. It's got your purpose and your mission and your strategic and operational priorities, your leadership behaviors, your brand promise, and it's a really powerful tool to get your leadership team around the table and say, okay, what are we building? And let's articulate it and put it together in a way that looks interesting and hang it up everywhere. And it helps us make decisions every day. It helps us, it reminds us of who we are. And I think this is important because I think now more than ever, every single one of us, especially y'all, I mean, y'all are going to go out and do amazing things in the world. And I really want you all to remember that we're living in a time where we have to take a stand for what we believe in, and we really can't compromise. We have to be willing to speak our truth and to do things that other people think don't make sense, because it's the only way that we're going to, frankly, save the planet. I think there's a lot of, one of the things that I've found as I've moved through the business world, especially in this business world that is so backed by venture capital, is that there's a lot of really illogical things going on that everyone seems to go along with because everyone else is going along with it. And there's a few examples I want to tell you. I think it's illogical to run a business that disregards the health of the planet. I think not only does it not make sense long-term for everyone that lives on the planet, it doesn't make sense from a marketing perspective. I think people are more and more savvy. I mean, one of the things we hear a lot with the meal kit business, feedback loops that we get from our customers is they're concerned about the packaging. They're really concerned about the packaging and all of the waste. And that's something that we're constantly looking at and we're constantly trying to improve on. And we've done a number of things to address the waste. And I can go into the weeds on the packaging waste if y'all want to hear me go into the weeds on the packaging waste, but you're going to have to ask that question at the end. But I do think it's illogical to run a business as if as if the health of the planet doesn't matter. I also think it's illogical to run a business as if the health of your employees don't matter. I think, and I mean that from an emotional perspective. I think employees need to come to a place where they feel happy and nurtured and safe. I'm going to pick on some of my larger competitors. I don't know, I doubt that any of you follow meal kits as closely as I do, but when Blue Apron first opened in Richmond in California, they had gunfights in their warehouse because they were growing so fast and they just couldn't control the number of people that were coming and going and couldn't do proper screening for their hires. And I just can't, I was horrified. I just can't imagine operating a facility where your employees are worried that they might get shot or stabbed. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know how someone could possibly be productive in an environment like that. So I think it's illogical to ignore the health of your employees. Another example is from Chef, which was another meal kit company that actually recently closed. I can also go into the weeds on why I think that happened, but the bottom line, I reached out to one of my advisors when they closed and I said, "What do you think this means?" And he said, "They ran out of money." I was like, well, yeah, I know that, but what else does it mean? But Chef, and I think this is something that's really interesting, specifically in the meal kit sector. When Chef closed, they closed overnight. Their employees didn't know. They got an email from the CEO that said, "Thanks, don't need you to come in anymore." And if you think about that, that's fine, honestly, for the engineers that were working there. They'll go find another Silicon Valley job, and they were already making 6 figures plus, and they're going to be fine. And that's the truth for most of the managers, and certainly for the CEO, and certainly for all of those investors at that business. But I'll tell you who suffered was those packers that were working the manufacturing floor that needed that job and were getting paid $10 or $12 an hour if they were lucky. They couldn't afford to take a hit like that. And that really concerned me. It concerned me that it's an example of the kind of thing that I think is really illogical, that everyone thinks, well, yeah, they ran out of money, so they just couldn't stay open anymore. But what about that responsibility to those employees who are working minimum wage jobs, who you need for manufacturing? And I think that's something that's really interesting about venture capital coming into food as much as it is, and coming into manufacturing in the way that it is right now. I think we need to assess the safety nets that we have for those lower tiered workers in situations like that, because they can't rebound the same way. I also think it's illogical to run a business that disregards the health of its customers. It's obviously illogical. If your customers die, you don't have customers anymore. That's one problem. But there's also, where we are right now in this space, you think back to that conversation I had with the founder, Hadi, where I said, "You're crazy, you're going to get people sick. This is food, people are going to eat it. There are food safety guidelines." But what's interesting about meal kits is the FDA and the USDA are just starting to catch up. The regulators are just starting to catch up with this whole new environment. And in some ways that's great, because that means you can move fast and do a lot of interesting, innovative things without getting slowed down. But it also, from my perspective, when I started with PeachDish from the very beginning, because I come from this restaurant world, I was like, we're going to do it the best way we know how, with the most food safety. It doesn't matter if the regulations are there or not, because this is important to the health of our customers, right? A lot of the competitors in the space right now will say, the CEO of Chef said, "Oh, we're not a food business, we're a logistics business." And the CEO of Blue Apron said, "Oh, well, we're not a food business, we're a tech business." And I think there's a real danger in that, because it really disregards your end product, which is food that people eat. So I think it's really important to keep your customer in mind and your customer experience and every decision you make along the way, and how that's going to impact your customer. It's illogical not to do that. I think tech and logistics definitely feature into the work we're doing, and that's some of what's really interesting and exciting about what we're doing. But it's not at the heart of what we're doing. At the heart of what we're doing is a food product that we're providing with people so that they can cook and eat and enjoy food at home. Agreed? Some of y'all look really sleepy out there. Do we need to stand up and stretch? Okay, I'm almost done. So the last thing that I think is illogical, really illogical, is to pretend that we're separate. Is to pretend that what I do doesn't have an impact on you, and what you do doesn't have an impact on me. And it's the same with a business. Whatever decision I make with my business has an impact on not just me, but on the people that work there, on the community around us, on the customers that rely on us and enjoy our food. How many of you guys believe that there's no separation between you and anyone else? One, we got 2, 3, yes. 4. Okay, so now there's some doubters. There's some doubters in the room. I want you to try this experiment. I want you to spend an hour, maybe today when you leave. It's Halloween, this is a good time to do it. Being kind to everyone that you see. Being generous with everyone that you see for the next hour. Go out of your way to simple things. Hold a door open, say hello, make eye contact, smile. All of these things. And at the end of the hour, I want you to note how you feel. And I want you to note how you feel the other people feel. Like, how did they respond to you? Do you feel anything? Do you feel anything? Start there. And then I want you to do the same thing in reverse. But don't take an hour. It's like way too toxic. Like, take 20 minutes and be really horrible. Be frowny and mean and shut the door in people's face and snap at the clerk that checks you out when you get your coffee. And really just treat someone exactly the way you would not want to be treated. And see how that feels. I guarantee you that if you do that little experiment, well, I'm not going to guarantee. I'm going to suggest that if you do that little experiment, you will come to understand that how you make other people feel and how other people feel around you and in your presence impacts you. And that, to me, is sort of like the core of why it's important to have really strong values and to question the logic of every decision you make in a business. I think we need to start running businesses with the understanding that everything is interconnected. So, really quickly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we did. So we have these values. We're prioritizing farmers. We're prioritizing our customers. We're also prioritizing artists. We did this little infographic to sort of summarize our 2017 year. We'll do it again in 2019. We had almost 9,000 new customers come through. If y'all want me to get into the weeds on customer lifetime value and acquisition costs, we can definitely do that. You can ask the question. We sold almost 8,000 kits at Whole Foods. We did a pilot with Metro Atlanta Whole Foods. We were in the stores. I don't think retail is a good solution for meal kits. I think the price point is too high and the perishability is too high. It's one thing if you want to throw away, if an apple goes bad and the grocery store has to get rid of it. If a meal kit goes bad at a $15, $20 price point with a 7-day shelf life, the management of that is ridiculous. If somebody here wants to think of a really interesting, innovative way to bring meal kits successfully to retail, go for it. I would encourage you. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but for us, it didn't work. And we also got sort of like caught up in the Amazon Whole Foods merger. We lost our main contact, and it just was a really difficult relationship to navigate. But it meant a lot to me that we got into Whole Foods in the first place, because at that time, Whole Foods had really high food standards. And we were the only meal kit company that could get through all of the food standards that Whole Foods had articulated. We do these amazing artist postcards, which I have brought some for you in case you need to send a note home to your mom and tell her that you love her or whatever. So I'm going to put these up here too. Let's do it later. We have a nutritionist and food educator who does amazing food puns. If you subscribe to our newsletter for the food puns alone, they're really fantastic. And we do a lot with guest chefs. So we have a culinary director, but we also work with restaurant chefs and cookbook authors from around the South to write recipes. So here's the part that, of course, is really juicy to me. In 2017, we supported 270, can y'all see all of that? Yeah, okay. 270 local food vendors, farmers, and artists. We spent $1.6 million in the local food economy. We produced an art truck that is so fun. We composted 19,000 pounds of mostly cold food waste. So we work with a company here called Compost Now. And they come and collect our compost. They compost it and deliver it to farms and to customers. You can see here a little bit of our the states, our top states. Georgia's always top. And then the top 5 are usually Texas, Florida, California, New York, and North Carolina sometimes makes it in to the top 5 as well. I guess at that time it was Virginia. So we have a pretty good distribution all around the country. $23,000 in charitable contributions. Honestly, that was probably mostly in silent auction items. I swear I get an email, 3 emails a day from somebody somewhere that's doing a silent auction for something. We donated Thanksgiving kits. We do a big Thanksgiving kit every year. It's got the turkey, it's got the sides, it's got the pie. And we donated those to those in need, a full kit to cook, and we did about $4,000 worth of those. Obviously, we're a really tiny shop, so to say that we're 60% women leaders is true, but we're talking about like 3 women besides me, just so you know. We responded to 35,000 customer service requests, and we donated 25,000 pounds of food, mostly produce, to the food bank. That's important because you know where it's really hard to get fresh food? At places where they're giving food away. And fresh food is the most nutritionally dense, it's the most alive, it's the food that's gonna make you the healthiest. It's also the food with the most risk, so it's hard to do that, but it's important to us. We have a great blog, we have some really smart people writing blogs, and they wrote a bunch of blog posts, and this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Cool. Hi, my name is Daniel Loom. I'm an undergraduate student here. So you were talking about how you tried to put meal kits in retail and how that didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
But it's also like not very sustainable to deliver meal kits to each and everyone's individual houses. Have you explored like other methods of like more sustainable distribution?
Like
so,
pickups?
What are? Yeah.
Well, I can answer that question technically yes, because my farm does that. We have a couple of distribution sites around the city where people come and they pick up food. I haven't done anything with PeachDish, but I give him the mic again because I want to ask you why you think it's unsustainable.
So if you're having to deliver like each meal kit to someone, that's like an extra amount of transportation. Like I'm assuming the people when they go to the grocery store, that's along their like normal commute. So it's not too much extra like transportation or any sort of extra emission cost. Whereas delivering a box to someone, I would imagine, would be less sustainable than ideal.
Yeah, I'm not sure it is. And that's why I wanted to know why you think it's unsustainable. Because here's the thing that is embedded in the grocery store that most people don't see, and this goes to the packaging too, is there's a ton of food miles. So that food, where do you shop? Where do you go to the grocery store?
Aldi.
Aldi. Oh, okay. So who knows where that, I mean, that produce could be coming from like Chile or Mexico, right? So that food has like been transported in a truck to some distribution center. It sat in that distribution center for a minute, and then it got transported to probably an Aldi distribution center, and then it sat at the Aldi distribution center, and then it went out to all the Aldi stores, and then you got it. So it was maybe more efficient when you're looking at it from the perspective of you driving, but all that behind the scenes driving, we're taking out because the farmer brings it to our warehouse and we ship it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to Georgia Tech and sharing with us the ins and outs of this business. We don't normally get a lot of people like you, so I'm really hoping for this opportunity for you to showcase to us the ins and outs of this business. I have a quick couple of questions. One being, there are a series of new initiatives, but you mentioned venture capital, but MIT Open Agriculture and companies like SoftBank depositing large sums of capital into these really urban farms of sorts where they're literally optimizing and genetically structuring all the plants, and they're located really, really close to cut out most of that supply chain that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Could you kind of talk about the future? Because the past has been a pretty accommodative economic environment. And can you talk about the future with regards to those trade tariffs, how those things are going to kind of impact your business? Because it seems like it's a very razor-thin margin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, food, and that's a whole other thing, is like what people have been taught to expect in terms of food costs, and it doesn't really convey the value of that food at all. I think that's a really dense question, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to respond to everything you asked, but one thing I heard you talk about was like there is this whole new wave of investment in urban agriculture, and specifically in like vertical agriculture, which is basically just a big warehouse where you grow things. And right now the things that they've figured out how to grow most easily are like lettuces and herbs and things that grow really quickly, don't have a long germination time, don't take up a lot of space, and can be harvested, and you could put it on a schedule, right? Like there's this guy that came to talk to me recently who's moving here from Japan, where they grow all of this lettuce and that's harvested by robots, and it's this climate controlled environment. And look, if it's a question of should we do that or should we let people starve, absolutely we should do that. But when I hear it, it makes me sad, because what I think of is we're distancing ourselves yet again from this biological system that we live in. And we're trying to find a way to engineer our way out of the fact that we're biological creatures living in a symbiotic biological relationship with planet Earth. And I think of it, do you know what a CAFO is? A CAFO is a contained animal feeding operation. That is like the worst of the worst, where cows stand around in 2 feet of their own feces waiting to get killed. It's horrible, and frankly, it is the majority of the protein production in this country. And if you eat animal proteins, you should think about it a little bit and do some research on CAFOs, because it's horrible. And I'm sorry, it's Halloween though, so I'm going to tell you some scary things. But I think of those vertical farms as like a CAFO for lettuce.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
So my question is, you mentioned and he asked a little bit about putting it into places like Whole Foods, but then we see places like Chick-fil-A. They've recently come out with meal kits, and so I'm just kind of curious how you think that's going to do, because it was kind of a trial run.
Yeah. Well, okay, so full disclosure, and this is like real business 101 stuff. There was a time 10 weeks ago where I went to my staff and I said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And The bad news was we were going to be, well, it's hard. I don't want to say it was bad news. I'm gonna walk back on that a little bit. The bottom line is we have been helping Chick-fil-A pack those meal kits because we have the facility and the amazingly trained staff to do it. And for us, it was different than what we thought we were going to be doing with our facility and our warehouse. But we also, we needed it. And so the good news piece of that story was I was like, we all get to keep our jobs because our warehouse is going to be using more of its capabilities. And those are sometimes the kinds of decisions that you have to make. You have to do things that, maybe they weren't all the suppliers that they certainly aren't the small farmers that we love to work with. But it's been a great experience. Chick-fil-A has been wonderful to work with. Like, I really can tell that they are a company that has values. Now, maybe not everybody agrees with their values, but what's impressive to me is that you can tell those values resonate through everybody. When you go to that campus, it's not like other corporate campuses. People are nice. People hold the door for you. They smile. They make eye contact. So it's been a really interesting experience to be a part of that project. They did come and ask me where I went to church before we started working together, which I thought was really interesting. Luckily, I had an answer. I don't go all the time, but sometimes I go to Hillside Chapel and Truth Center on a Cascade Road. But I think if anybody can do it, here's what's genius about the Chick-fil-A thing. They have the real estate. They have the drive-through windows. They have a ton of brand loyalty, and not just brand loyalty from eaters like you and me, but brand loyalty from children. So those kits are not like Chick-fil-A sandwiches. They're like chicken parmesan and chicken enchiladas. So I can totally see a scenario where, there's a soccer mom driving home from practice. They stop and they get lemonade and a snack and they get a meal kit to cook at home. And the kids are excited about it because it's from Chick-fil-A and they're eating vegetables. So that's a pretty good thing. I think it was a smart move, and I'm excited to see where it goes for them. The pilot ends November 17th. They're going to do some evaluation and probably make a decision at the beginning of the year about what's next.
So I have a question about, you talked, so the meal kits, again, being in store and how that didn't work out. Do you have any ideas for kind of innovation? Because there's been, like, the meal kit services really grew and expanded and kind of, some succeeded and some failed, but we've kind of moved past, like, the startup stage of meal kit services, and now it's getting into, like, sustaining it and then innovation. So where do you see them going from now?
Man, I wish I could tell you. I honestly, where I am on it is like until all of this venture capital in this space bleeds out, who knows what's going to happen? Because what you're seeing right now is like everyone is focused on customer growth, right? More customers, and they're doing that by giving free food away with their war chest of venture capital that they have. And it's none of it like is, in my opinion, a real business. They're not worried about their profitability, and frankly, no one is profitable. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And that's part of what I was saying about, like, it really concerned me when Chef closed because I thought, oh, is this going to happen now? And, how many employees does Blue Apron have? And what are all those packers going to do? And actually, there was an article today. I just saw it come up in my Google alerts. I think it was from somewhere in Berkeley about what the impact of these meal kits and these venture-backed meal kits are going to have on hourly wage workers. Did that answer your question at all? I don't know what's going to happen. I think people like meal kits, and I think people will continue to buy them. I don't know. I think there's a lot of evolution and innovation that still needs to happen before we get to something that's final.
So I have a question about business plan and growth of PeachDish. I guess a lot of people use meal kits as an introduction to cooking and as an easy entryway for them to like get into cooking. Does your business plan, or do you envision that you're going to inspire people to keep using PeachDish as they continue to cook for the rest of their lives, or does that kind of conflict with how you'd imagine PeachDish would grow?
I mean, I can just tell you sort of anecdotally from my own experience. I mean, I'm the wife of a farmer. I have worked in restaurants, great restaurants, fine restaurants for many, many years. I cook all the time. When I started with PeachDish, I thought, oh, meal kits are not for me. Like, I know how to cook. I got great food all around me. But the truth of it is yes, you can learn to cook, but more than anything, it's just convenient. If you have a meal kit subscription and you are working and you're tired, your question of what in the heck are we gonna do for dinner is answered because it's there, and it's kind of a delightful answer. You're like, oh, it's all just right there. I'll just cook it. I'll just open a bottle of wine and make dinner, and it's gonna be great. Good questions.
I'm not real familiar with it. I never used the meal kit, but it does have fresh vegetables in it, is that correct?
Yeah.
So how long do they last before they go bad? The reason why I'm asking this is there's got to be a certain amount of lead time from the time you get the product from the farm to the warehouse, and then it gets back to the meal kit, and it gets shipped to the mill.
Yeah.
It's received about, do they have like 50 days of using it, or do they have some long extended lead time?
You have about a week in our case to use it. Now, we have shortened the supply chain a lot. I mean, again, back to this, you know, who asked the question about driving and the transportation? Like, there's a ton of time that the vegetables and fruits that you get at your grocery store have been sitting somewhere. Just because you don't see them from the time they harvest to the time they get to the store or to your refrigerator doesn't mean that they haven't been sitting somewhere. So we're cutting that time a lot, because a farmer can harvest on a Sunday, bring it to us on a Monday morning, and we'll pack it and put it in a box, and it'll be to you on a Tuesday. That is incredibly short. So
You have about a week after that.
yeah, the short answer to your question is you have about a week. I've stretched them often to 2 weeks.
Do these kits have to be refrigerated when they're in?
They do. In the box, actually, we sort of simulate a refrigerated environment. So it's got a liner and ice packs, and they're tested to last about 48 hours in transit before it has to get back into a refrigerator.
Okay, so I have a quick question. Just for clarifying sake, on your website, most of your products, it's $12.50 per serving. Is that correct? And so I know your company has a big thing towards helping the community and serving the community. I know a lot of impoverished communities, one reason they say they don't really eat much nutritious food is it's quite expensive. So do you guys have any initiatives to sort of lower the price point on any of your products to serve those communities?
I wouldn't say that we have an initiative. I would say that I have a dream. One of the other things that interests me about this technology, if you want to call it that, I mean, it's a cardboard box with an insulated liner, but one of the things that interests me about this technology is it could be an amazing solution for neighborhoods that they used to call food deserts, but I think you're not supposed to call them that anymore, where there's not a grocery store. There's not anywhere to get fresh, healthy food. It's something that I would love to figure out a solution to, but I just am one. Would you like an internship?
Yes.
All right. Let's do this. All right. Okay, you guys, no more questions, yes?
I did have one quick question. So it was kind of tied off of his idea is, I was in New Orleans and we used this thing called Simply Fresh, and I know it's very similar to yours. And their pricing is a lot less, and they're also advertising that they have fresh meals and that, it's a lot healthier than going to McDonald's or going, elsewhere. So my question is, how do you market towards people saying that it's worth paying a little extra for yours, even though they're both healthy?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that we're kind of a niche, kind of a boutique product, and we are for people who really care about not just healthy, fresh food, but also the provenance of that food. People who want to know where their food is coming from. Because with our kits, you get a letter from me. I don't really write it. Every single week that says, these are all the farms that we bought from. This is exactly what we bought. So if you have lettuce in your box, you know it came from Tucker Farm in Rome, Georgia. Then you can go back to our website and you can look at our supplier page, and you can go to that farmer's website and you can learn more about that farm if that's what you want to do. So those are the kind of customers, the customers who really want to have a relationship with the food that they eat. Oh.
I was just thinking about this. You talked about how you do pickups for your farm.
Uh-huh.
Have y'all thought about doing like pickups for the meal kits at like farmers market or places like that where people there tend to be planning for the week and kind of figuring it out and like having that, and not as much of a just pick up whatever's their mentality that I feel like happens at grocery stores?
We did do some. We had some presence at farmers markets. There's a few reasons that we decided not to do it anymore. The main one is it just, I don't know, we're sort of in this in-between spot where it wasn't big enough for us to do it, so we couldn't get enough scale to make it worthwhile. We're sending out about 4,000 kits a week now, and so, to grow, we need to be able to know that we're going to go somewhere and sell at least 200 kits.
If not, Judith, thank you so much for
Oh.
having your house.